Hello, what I have here is a circa 1962 Dominion 2-speed box fan, model 2067-D. I picked this up off of Marketplace yesterday for really cheap. I've already cleaned this one up, taken it apart, serviced the motor. I even replaced the original dry rotted head wire on this. And for that I just used one of these flat computer power cables, similar to what you'd find on the laptop. Works quite well, and it looks pretty close to factory, so I really like that. This fan was pretty horribly rusty. I've cleaned it up quite a bit. Try to bring back as much of the original paint as possible. This has a Fasco motor. These motors are made by Fasco. There's the connection diagram. You see the common is the ribbed conductor. I made sure to when I replaced the cord, I made sure that the ribbed side, this side, was the common. And I put inside of here there's a green ground. I put heat shrink over the ends of it to hopefully not confuse a person after me who may end up having to replace the wire again, or the switch. There's the switch up there. This fan had a pretty nasty cut in the wire, and the previous owner just wrapped some electrical tape around it. They also had a botched repair here for the line cord. This is the original line cord, but it's slightly shorter. But luckily these Dominions came with a pretty ridiculously long cord from the factory. And there's the connections inside of there. Soldered the leads, heat shrink, and I used some Kevlar cord to tie it down. Fairly easy to do once you get the hang of it. But this fan, once I got it all back together, I noticed it had a really loud vibration or buzzing sound when it would get up to speed. And I took it apart several times to try to figure out what that noise was. I thought it was maybe some of these washers in the motor. It had these two metal washers inside of the motor. I typically take those out and put fiber washers in there. I thought it was those, so I took those out. I also because the bearings don't have any slop or anything, and the motor runs perfectly fine. This was also after I balanced the blades. I took the blades off and I threw them on. This is another project I'm working on. I'm trying to make a balancing stand just for box fan blades. See, I've got a little motor, a belt, And I've got some stainless steel rods here that roll on some little bearings from some computer fans I took apart. Some Delta Cerber computer fans. Works quite well. This is a 3/8 shaft. That's what these Dominions use, is a 3/8. And I've got different sizes. I've got 1/2 inch, I think 5/32, a couple other sizes, 1/4 inch. But it worked quite well for this. I also threw on some, found out about this stuff from Jordan. This is like lead sort of tape. It's designed for like golf clubs and things like that, for changing the weight on those. Actually works really well for these. I've got some stuck in the back of this blade to balance it out in that stand. And that stand is really nice for that, because once you got a blade on here, these bearings allow it to roll really nicely without too much drag, and it'll self-balance. It'll not self-balance, I don't think that's the right term, but the heaviest part of the blade will go down, of course, with gravity. So, about that noise. What it ended up being was the blade hub. Little rivets on the blade hub, they were slightly loose. And once this thing got up to speed, it would buzz and rattle like crazy. I was hoping that it wasn't the bearings, and luckily it wasn't. So how I figured out it was that, because if you grabbed it and moved it around, it wouldn't really move at all. It wouldn't really move around at all if you try to move it. What I did was I ran the fan, and I kind of listened around on it to see where the noise was coming from, and it sounded like it was coming from the blades. Of course, if it was a bearing issue, it would also ring off the blades, but you would also hear it through the motor, through the cabinet. But it sounded like it was just coming from the blades themselves. And once I had that thought, I took this blade set. I took my mid-60s Dominion apart. I took the blade off of that, and I took that blade and put it on there. And the noise moved with the blade, so I knew immediately it was that. Because this fan runs great. I know the bearings are good in this, and this blade set is very similar to this. The only difference is this one has the riveted hub with the rubber. With the rubber vibration isolator sort of stuff kind of molded around it. So likely what has happened is the rubber over time, it breaks down, it shrinks a little bit, and the gap in between the hub and the blade kind of shrunk a little bit, and the rivets then had a little bit of play, and so it was then rattling around a little bit. But you would only notice it once it got up to speed. If it was the motor, typically you hear it. If it was like an electrical issue, it sounded almost like an electrical buzzing kind of sound, but not quite. But usually if it's an electrical buzz, it'll happen on startup when the motor's under the most load. But yeah, that's how I figured out that problem. Now how I fix the problem, I'll go ahead and take the blade off and I'll show you what I did. Yes, that was pretty tight. I typically put them on pretty tight because I don't want them rattling loose. There's the blade set. And I'm going to take this upstairs and I'll show you what I did to fix this little problem. All right. Okay, pardon the mess in my shop here, but what I did was because these are the 3 rivets right here that were the offenders. What I did here was I flipped the blade over. Well, no, I didn't flip it over. I positioned the blade like this. I used the jaws on my vise as an anvil, essentially, and I looked through this little gap here to make sure that the rivet was sitting on there. Made sure none of the rest of the blade was on there. And then I took this punch right here, which has this sort of stubby round cone-shaped profile on that rivet, and gave it a whack with the hammer, just like a medium kind of whack, not too hard. Just one should do it. If you go too if you hit it too hard, what you could end up doing is you could end up cutting the little rounded part off of the rivet that way, because it'll essentially pinch it off, and you don't want that. If that does happen, I mean, you could put a bolt through there, or try to find a rivet that would work. But yeah, I got a little bit of paint damage on those rivets now, but I'd rather have that than have a noisy blade hub. So that's what I did. You could also see some glossiness around there. After I did that, I also put some super glue in there to hopefully do a little bit more. I'm not entirely convinced that did anything, but you know, I did that. And so after I did that, this thing no longer makes noise. Now I'll take this back downstairs, put it back on the fan, and we'll go ahead with the running demonstration. I forgot to mention, to know it was the hub and not like the rivets on the blades themselves, what I did was something that I do at my work when moving blow pins in the machinery that I work on. I will kind of force on it a little bit, and if I feel a knock in any direction, then I know that there's some slop there. So, and of course on this you don't want to have any kind of slop whatsoever, except for what the rubber bushing is doing. But anyways, enough of that. Let's run this thing. Low speed. That was me. I kicked something by mistake. we are. .95 amps. High speed. .72. Shutting it off. As you can hear, there's no mechanical noises from this fan other than the blades and the harmonic frequencies of the motor. Of course, it's a very well lubricated motor with heavy steel blades. It takes a while to spin down. My other one, my mid-60s one's actually spins a little bit longer than that, but it's still really good. I did save the, when I cleaned it, I did save the sticker as best as I could. And it was already wrinkled and folded. Come on, can you focus? Focus on that. There we go. There it is. Now when I figure out if I'm going to repaint this fan or not, whenever I decide, I'll go ahead and stick that back on. What's amazing is that this thing still has all four of its rubber feet. It's quite amazing. A little drainage hole right there. There's another one on eBay right now that's super rusty. I thought it was a rust hole, but no, it's a factory drainage hole. This has the smaller badge. A smaller round badge. But yeah, that's it for my 1962 Dominion 2-speed. Model 2067-D. Thanks for watching.